fracasados. Creo que nadie los vio como fracasados, al contrario, valientes, apoderarse o empoderarse de su situación y sacarla adelante, creo que es lo que todos queremos y buscamos. En los momentos más difíciles es cuando se encuentran las oportunidades. Para dar inicio al segundo track temático, el de este Innovation Land Summit 2024, el track de economía creativa. Quiero invitar a Andrés Valencia de Stargate Studio Colombia, quien hoy va a estar con nosotros. Además, esta conferencia es posible gracias al programa de innovación Más País Antioquia de la ANDI. Los invitamos a todos a conocer las experiencias de las empresas beneficiarias y el impacto del programa en el showroom de innovación. Así que, Andrés, este espacio es tuyo.
Muchas gracias. Yo no me voy a demorar. Quiero hacerles una pregunta, que me levanten la mano. ¿Saben qué son los VFX o efectos visuales? 1, 2, 3, bueno, ya hay hartos. Para los que no saben, los efectos visuales es toda esa magia que tienen y que las hemos conocido, esas películas hollywoodenses, los Transformers, los dinosaurios, esos mundos fantásticos, ese mundo construido a través de computadores y software. Yo soy nacido aquí en Medellín, especialmente en la Comuna 13, en el año 81. Me tocó vivir los primeros años de mi vida en una zona muy difícil, una zona muy complicada, y por mi hermana, que se llama Yesenia Valencia, que fue la que nos impulsó, ella dijo, salgamos de acá y vamos a buscar un nuevo rumbo. Ese nuevo rumbo fue viajar a Bogotá. Ella es actriz, mi socia, emprendedora, y hace 12 años iniciamos una empresa que se llama Valencia Producciones. Yo siempre he soñado poder llegar a unas personalidades y toda la vida me soñé o ser Spielberg, o ser James Cameron, o ser Sam Nicholson. Esas personalidades que uno sueña en algún día conocer. En el 2018, así como uno de los conferencistas anteriores, esperando el bus, me llegó Sam Nicholson. Le escribí 6 años a su correo, nunca me respondió y por cosas del destino llegó a nuestra oficina a Bogotá. Ahí nosotros ya llevábamos trabajando y construyendo una empresa, trabajando locales, trabajando para canales como RCN, como Caracol, como Televideo, como Telecolombia en ese momento. En ese momento, cuando llega Sam, conoce nuestro proyecto, conoce lo que nosotros estábamos haciendo. Yo conocía el modelo en el que él trabajaba, usaba todos sus reels y todos sus trabajos para vender mi trabajo. Y yo decía, yo puedo hacer lo que él hace. Mucha gente me creyó, hasta el día que llegó Sam y le propuse y le dije, quiero ser Stargate Studios Colombia. Stargate Studios estaba en Beijing, en Malta, en Los Ángeles, en New York, en Atlanta, en muchas partes del mundo, menos en Sudamérica. Pasamos todo un proceso, un análisis con él, todo un proceso para poder llegar a trabajar con él. Hoy en día somos Stargate Studios Colombia. Hoy en día tengo la posibilidad de la mano de Sam Nicholson trabajar para Hollywood, construir para Hollywood. Estoy construyendo con Sam también escuela en Colombia para que nos volvamos una gran industria de los efectos visuales para el mundo. Antes no nos veían, ahora ya estamos haciendo parte de la historia. Quiero que lo recibamos con un fuerte aplauso a Sam Nicholson.
Great job, thank you. Hola, ¿qué tal? That's about as far as my Spanish goes, and I apologize for not practicing more Spanish when I was growing up. But I've had a great experience here in Colombia. Andres and his team at Stargate Colombia have been really incredible. And, you know, my career and how it relates to entrepreneurialism and innovation, I fell into the film business out of art school, and I never planned on being a business owner. I never planned on being a movie maker. That was all a surprise. And it turned out that I could solve problems, and I wasn't afraid to try. And it's sort of like when there's only one guy who'll get on the horse that has to jump off the cliff, and I was stupid enough to do that. So I would volunteer for things that other people couldn't figure out. I was in art school. I was going to be a glass blower. I had no intention of being a movie maker. And a movie, Star Trek, the first movie came along, and one of my professors said, well, they're having a problem. They don't know how to make an antimatter engine, and they don't know how to make people turn into light and disappear, and maybe you should go talk to them. So without knowing anything about the film business, I got the contract. I showed them some stuff. They liked it. The director and I got along, and close to 50 years later, here I am, and I've solved a lot of problems for people in the production business, and survived. You either win or you lose in that game, and so you make promises based on technology, based on the best of your knowledge, based on everybody you talk to, and then you go home and think, how am I going to do this? And you solve problems. And so this reel I'd like to show you is a compilation of my work that I put together for the ASC, the American Society of Cinematographers, which I'm proud to be a member of, and they gave me a Lifetime Achievement Award for solving problems, I guess. And so I wanted to say, well, this is from the beginning of 1989, I think, in Star Trek. It had to be real-time, on-set, make people disappear in light, all the way up to virtual production today, and 13 or 14 companies that we've started around the world, literally thousands of people that I've had the opportunity to meet and train and work with. And so here's a quick overview of projects that I've done. Well, thank you. Hey. You know, every one of those projects started as an impossible idea. Someone had to sit down with a piece of paper and start dreaming about what was possible or what could be. And, you know, a writer writes an idea and then a whole bunch of people get together and say, you know, the producers, you know, this costs too much, you know, this takes too much time, this is impossible. And then people start coming up with solutions, and you start knocking those barriers down one at a time. And I think the film business is particularly unique in terms of, you know, this technical evolution that we're going through, because it's all about innovation, and it's all about collaboration of sometimes very large teams to take ideas and say, well, I can do this, can you do that? And if you do this and you bring that, and all of a sudden the collective experience of collaborative art begins to take shape. And I think the film business is unique because it started, when I started, it was film. It was something you could touch. It was chemical. It was something you put in a camera and you could hold it up and look at it. You could touch it. And when you cut film, you put it on a moviola, you took all this film and you put it together and you put it in an optical printer and tried to make something, and then you made prints, and those prints went out to theaters and you would look at them, but it was all physical. You could touch it. And that industry with digital became completely vapor. There's now, take a picture with your cell phone. Where is that picture? Can you ever touch it? No. It is totally virtual. The entire medium of film changed from being something we could touch and feel to being something that is just in the vapor, virtual. And the tools changed, the process changed, every single thing in that chain has become virtual. And now we're talking about AI. And it's going to undergo another massive shift of what is real and what is not. And what we did, actually after 9/11, there was a big shift where none of the actors would get on planes, and all of a sudden everything froze. And whenever anything freezes or anything changes in a huge way, like AI is doing right now, that is the time where there's the most opportunity. It's the scariest time, but it's where there's the most opportunity, because it's like, if all these chairs are taken in the audience, that's a stable industry. If something comes through and everybody stands up and can't find a chair, that's when you can actually find a chair, right? If you're the new generation coming in. So right now, we're witnessing the end of about an 80-year cycle where everything is changing, and it's going to be deconstructed and it's going to be reconstructed with AI affecting every aspect of every industry. And so we've been anticipating that. And what I thought was, why just, I started one company out of necessity because they wrote a check to me and I couldn't cash it. So I had to make a company to cash the check in my early years. And that went on. And then I thought, well, if I can do one, can I do two companies? And so we made another company in Vancouver. And then I thought, well, that one worked. And we got everybody to talk. And it was a great collaboration of different artists in different countries. But let me try to do another one in Toronto. And then we did another one in New York. And then we did another one in Germany. And we did Stargate Mexico City, you know, in the Middle East, in Dubai, tried it out in China, you know, with Beijing, and they're not all successful. You know, the cultural, the dynamics of politics, all sorts of things come into play. You can't always expect to be successful if you are an entrepreneur. But if you have a lot of persistence in your vision. You will make it. You'll experience 10 failures, but you'll have that one success that keeps you going. And then you find other people. And what I find the most inspirational thing in what I do, I love what I do. I love to shoot. I love to make movies. But what I really love is meeting and inspiring people that I work with and seeing over years relationships develop, like with Andres. And now Andres has his whole family in Bogota of artists that he has collected that share a common vision, and they follow everything he does, and he leads them and teaches them. So I, by osmosis, they're kind of like my family, and I get to come and see them, you know, and see them grow as artists and develop. And I mean, aside from the fact that we've had, I think, 7 or 8 marriages of people that have gotten together, my editors and visual effects supervisors, and suddenly they get married, and then, you know, suddenly they have children, and there's a relationship that goes much deeper than just the business itself. There's, you know, a passion for, you know, getting together and working together, which is just what a film is all about, is you get a bunch of people together and you all collectively pool your talents and you make things. You make something that wasn't there before. You take an idea, somebody says, well, we can do this, and all of a sudden you find yourself on a mountaintop in, you know, Chile or Buenos Aires or Germany or crazy desert in Dubai or something like that, and you think, well, how did we get here? And it's just because you were inspired and you believed that you could do it. So I think that's an example of every industry. So the next thing I wanted to show you is what we call the virtual backlot. And we started looking at, rather than productions going to a location, which is very expensive. And it's always, you talk to a producer and they'll say, oh my God, I can't afford to bring all my people here or move it there. You want to shoot in one place, and now with tax incentives, everybody's shooting everywhere and they want it to look like somewhere else. So we started going around and shooting all over the world and developing the virtual backlot library of thousands of locations shot in such a way that you could put people in virtually and be in another place, but actually be shooting in New York. You could shoot in Los Angeles and make it look like you were in New York. You could, you know, you build this virtual library, and now you have solved one of the great problems in production, which is location shooting. You know, a writer will write a one-page scene in London, and the producer looks at that and says, oh my God, you know, how am I going to get to London? You know, that one page breaks my budget. So they either tear the page out or somebody figures out how to do it. So that's what this is all about, and we applied it to any number of shows, so you can kind of see, and this one's narrated, so I, you know, we'll just let it run.
At Stargate, we've been pursuing virtual production for many years. So we have a tremendous library of plates shot all over the world that can be applied to any shoot. So whether you're in New York, whether you're in Norway, or whether you're in downtown Los Angeles, we have a complete camera team that is extremely well versed in shooting plates. So we're here today to talk about our process through view, real-time emissive screen shooting. From a directing standpoint, there's nothing like shooting real time, because the director can block the scene, you can see it in camera, and everything you shoot is composited with no post-production. So one of the key attributes of ThruView is the interactive lighting. It's totally tied to the background. As a street light comes in, it flares the lens appropriately. The lights all respond to the plate. We also have full color control and focus control through the DaVinci Resolve on set, so we can track multiple cameras and assign different parts of the screen to different trackers for multi-camera coverage. We can also do volumetric tracking, which is a much larger setup for sets that need it. We've designed ThruView to be totally scalable from a single setup with an OLED monitor to a multi-camera, multi-screen setup for very large productions. And what's unique about this show is that we are in a virtual ocean. We have a full-size pirate ship that breaks into 3 pieces. So it's a very flexible modular design on not only the physical set, but the LED volume itself and the lighting. The reason we chose virtual production for the solution here is we had done some great work with HBO on Run, where we spent 12 weeks on a train with virtual production. You're literally taking what we used to do in post-production, color timing, depth of field, all those things can be done now live on set. We just finished a great hybrid virtual production. We wanted to be able to flip back and forth between green and LED at will. The Ultimats gave us the ability to pre-visualize what the composite would look like in post. I think we're breaking some new ground in virtual production.
Thank you. Thanks. It's visual effects and watching the arc of visual effects. When I started, it was, you'd take 10 strips of film and put them on a light table and try to figure out which ones went with which, and you'd put it in an optical printer, and you would see the results maybe the next day, probably 2 or 3 days later. It was like trying to learn how to play an instrument without being able to hear the music. And you can imagine if you were trying to play the guitar or something and learn how to play it, if you did this, and tomorrow you hear the music. You're not going to learn anything very fast. So I call that the creative feedback loop of when you do something, how fast is the reaction of what you get back. And that is the learning cycle for any process. And the faster you can get that cycle, the faster you can learn, the faster you can teach, the faster you can create your product. So, the idea of something like the ferry sequence in Grey's Anatomy started as, the production, the director wanted to go and light a ferry on fire in Seattle. So we all actually went up to Seattle, 20 of us location scouting, and the director's like, okay, we're going to bring the ferry in and light it on fire. And, everybody's like, yeah, how do you put it out, So it became pretty obvious that, we couldn't light a ferry on fire. We couldn't bring in helicopters. We couldn't, do a lot of the things that were in the script. Then we started talking about, well, so we don't have to go to Seattle because we can just shoot a ferry, make a ferry, do the helicopters. And then we started asking, do we really need to go to the water? Or can we do the water artificially? Can we shoot in a parking lot so everybody can be walking around, but we'll turn this room into water, right? That would be a lot easier and it would save a lot of money. So that's how we wound up doing it. And when we put it all together, we wound up shooting in a massive parking lot with a 800-foot green screen. But when we put it together, they ran the show and they never told Seattle, the authorities in Seattle, that we didn't shoot it there. And the city of Seattle called and was going to sue ABC because they thought we'd actually lit a ferry on fire, but we never even went to Seattle. The lawyers loved that. They thought that was just great. But the idea is if you do it right, there are no digital fingerprints on it. And that's really, in virtual production, the idea now is, can we take something that was a really painful, slow process, and with new technology, and you've got any technology is out there that is legal, can we accelerate the process? And we say that there's a good, fast, cheap triangle, that generally you can only have two. You can have good and fast, but it won't be cheap. You can have cheap and good, but it won't be fast. So if you can come up with something, no matter what your industry is, that you can solve all three, go for it. Stick with it. Develop it. So what we're doing with virtual production is we're taking a very painful, slow process, which isn't going away. We're not trying to replace it. But we're saying that a certain amount of that industry, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry, can be moved from a very slow, painful, one shot at a time, one frame at a time, wait for weeks. Can we do it in real time? And ironically, this screen is one of the big parts that we use. We have quite a few of these. And what we put on it is different than this. What we do, the reason we call it Through View, is all of you see the same image up here, right? I think and the image is stuck right here. What we say is the image, if this image does not exist on this screen, if it exists out of infinity, then you are going to see one perspective, you're going to see another perspective, and you're going to see all the way through the screen over there. It's like a giant piece of glass. And as you move this screen, the image stays in the exact same place. And if you walk around, this world changes. The perspective changes. So it becomes real. And that's what virtual production is all about. It has to be real time. And it has to be seamless, because you will probably have a burn rate, we call it, of how much you're spending per day on a production. A production generally has about as many people as are in this room. There's hair and makeup, and there's electric, there's grip, there's the producers, and the studio is probably right in front. But if you take that whole thing, and everybody's being paid a lot of money, then every minute counts. And so if you can come up with new technology that is dependable, and it's faster, then and it looks better, then everybody's happy. And that becomes a new business model overnight. We don't do a lot of advertising. In fact, we do almost zero advertising. I've always felt that our work should speak for itself, and that the word will get out. If the work is really good, one producer talks to another, they see it, and they go, wow, that looked great. Who did that? So we don't try to sell. We do behind the scenes marketing videos and whatnot, but we don't try to just sell vapor. We try to prove it first to ourselves, can we do it? And then we make the promise of maybe we can do it. And you have to be very careful not to overpromise, because the producers and the directors, they don't know where the edge of the virtual universe is. So if this is what you've established as the edge of what you can do and you can't do, a large part of our jobs as futurists in the film business becomes managing their expectations and telling them where the edge of this virtual universe is, so they don't just walk right off it and faceplant. So I think that's a big part of being a futurist, is knowing where the edge of that virtual universe is, knowing what you can accomplish and what you can't. Because if you just deal in big, glorious terms of, that's different. That's just future prediction. But we're talking about a situation where there's a lot of people's careers, a lot of production money. There's your reputation. Everything is on the line when you go out there and say we can do this. And particularly if you're the only one in the room that thinks you can do it, you should have done your homework, because it's a kind of a lonely place to be, to hold your hand up and say we can do it. And everybody turns around immediately, and everybody's like, oh, okay, we'll follow him. He said it would work, right? So when you say on a show like Pan Am or something, we can do an entire virtual universe, we don't need a set. We can do New York in 1969, and it'll work for an entire series. The studio says, are you sure? Are you sure this is going to work? And how do you guarantee it? I love that. How do you guarantee it? Because there's generally no guarantee. And all you can guarantee is your word at that point, that you've done it before and you're not going to overpromise, but you're going to go right to the edge, maybe a little bit over the edge, but you will deliver. And that edge is always changing. This edge in technology from when I started talking to right now has probably moved another 10 feet out. I was sitting here thinking, what a great thing if I could use AI to deliver this in Spanish. And next time we do this, I'll do that. I'm working on it, right? Because we talked to Chat GPT 4.0, and we tried it right before I left Los Angeles, and it worked. It was kind of frustrating because I said, oh, God, that would work, but I'm not willing to risk it yet. Right? So how you use AI in technology to change the game. All of our games are changing. Whether you're a manufacturer, or you're an innovator, or you're a designer, it doesn't matter who you are. As much as computers changed our lives, and we're all walking around with cell phones connected to the global internet, we now no longer get lost. It knows where we are. It knows what we're saying. Our personal assistants are going to help us out. Then all of my personal assistant is going to be chatting with all of your personal assistants in about a year. And everybody's going to start connecting us, right? And our personal assistants will start connecting. And that is something which is going to be 100% revolutionary, because collective thought and collaborative art is how great art happens. And it's this thing of breaking through how we get siloed. You're in a big company, they put you in an office, your communications go down like this. It's not like a bunch of kids on the playground. You become a specialist. And then the specialists become even more specialized. It's like, if I have a heart problem, I don't want to go to a generalist. I want to go to a specialist. And then you start driving down into these places, like in the medical field, where they are really specialized. But the idea of, in the medical field, being able to access all the medical documents in the world and get the best advice in the world, because you're plugged into AI and your AI is looking for a solution. It's a helper. Don't be afraid of it. I mean, a lot of people are afraid of AI. They think it's going to replace them. It's not going to replace us. I mean, who's going to teach the AI? Who's going to think outside the box? The AI is very good at thinking inside the box. You give it a problem, it solves it. But it doesn't know how to get outside the box. And creativity, and particularly the original spark of an idea, is thinking outside the box. It's saying, this is what everybody else is doing, let me try it this way. And you might fail, but you might win. It's that analogy of, how do you get across a stream? There's a bunch of rocks. Some people will very slowly calculate which rock to get to, and they'll jump from they'll step from one rock safely to another. Another person will do like this leap. See, exactly. And then they'll slip on that rock, right? But they'll try this, and then they'll try that. And they'll get to the other side of the stream faster than the person who is carefully going like this, right? So don't be afraid to jump. Don't be afraid to fall. That was a pretty good example, I thought. But I thought that was painted. But in all seriousness, have fun with it. Don't be afraid to fall, because I'll tell you, that's where you learn. That's exactly where you learn. And for every time you learn, the faster you learn, the faster you innovate. So let's look at another reel. This reel is all real time. This is something that we said driving is in almost every script. People drive. So can we take driving and just make it real time? And this has become, in the last year, this has become a complete business model where we now offer this to Hollywood, and this is all we do. This is how we do it. Let's take a look at virtual driving. Now these are different setups. Our LED walls are all mobile. You can see how when they turn, the image stays the same. And these are ideas that now producers are coming to us and saying, can you do this? So we're inventing new ways to shoot the real world with multiple cameras. These things all get blended into a virtual environment. And these are all shows for Netflix and various people. This is a technology that fits all production. Every time you get in a car, it's a heck of a lot better to shoot it this way than a real car.
I can't do this. No.
4127, one, not a match.
When you shoot
4127, Roger.
towing a car, you can do about 4 pages a day. We're shooting 12 pages a day this way. And it's cheaper, and it looks great, and the director can talk to the actors right there
Sir, will you please
and get a
stop the
great
car?
performance.
Please.
I can't do that. We're on a bridge.
And don't forget that all these assets are reusable. This is Chuck Lorre's new show, How to Be a Bookie. He shoots 12 pages a day, no waiting.
Your wife enjoyed Purple OG Kush. Shit, that saved my marriage a couple of times. What the hell are you driving a lift for?
If you have really high-paid actors, it's worth it to get them in and out fast, like The Idol. Or The Weeknd, sorry. But this is a technology that we could bring here to Medellin. It applies anywhere in the world. It works. If you want to drive in New York, we can be in New York. We can be anywhere in the world with this footage. This is a virtual environment with Taika Waititi. He's one of the highest paid directors in the business, so we did a 5-minute sequence in 1 day with him. Station 19 we've done for 3 years now this way. We just wrapped their 100th anniversary or 100th episode anniversary of this show. So we're doing this every week. In fact, the guys are shooting this week at Warner Brothers on the Bookie show, and you know it's new technology that is applied in different ways. You say, well, they came up with these LEDs. I wonder what we can use these things for. And you know, there's a lot of different. You hear about virtual production. It can be really expensive and very cumbersome, but it can also be very flexible, and it can solve a particular problem in production. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just make it better, right? If you just take one of the most difficult parts of your process and you say, okay, everybody's doing it this way. What if we apply a new technology and can change the game a bit? Does it speed things up? Does it save money? Does it save time? Is it a better product? Do you get more iterations? And I think that artificial intelligence is going to play a big part in all of our lives, particularly because it's just going to be like having an incredible assistant that you can ask, you know, give me 1,000 variations on this design, and I'll pick the one I like, right? Rather than having to go through and laboriously do that yourself. And the film business, again, is a really unique industry because it has gone totally virtual, and now it's a totally global product. When we create a shot, we can digitize that and send it to 3 artists around the world. They can work on it from their home. They can be on a computer, a laptop in their kitchen in Medellin, and they can log on to computers in Los Angeles. Now they're controlling computers in Los Angeles. They're much more powerful, and they're turn something out, create something, and that can be sent back here in a matter of minutes. So we're really a global community now. And we have to figure out how best to blend our cultures together and retain our cultural identity. I keep saying that you know, the Latin telenovela is, I mean, you have a corner on the romantic, you know, universe of storytelling, I think, you know, and that is such a unique aspect of your culture that you have that and you can export that, and it's a very valuable asset all over the world because not everyone knows how to tell a romantic story, right, or a dramatic story. And so really it's taking a look at what you have locally and inherently in your culture, and being able to export that in such a way that you're part of a collaborative community on a global scale where other people are bringing their best thing. It's like a dinner party where everybody brings the best of what they've got. And then you inject the best technologies. And the technologies are like railroads that are being built. They're very predictable. You know, computer memory, computer speed, these things are predictable. Moore's law, all these different things. So you can predict the future. You can predict what computers are going to be able to do in a year, 2 years. And does that intersect with other technologies? And it's where those things intersect that it gets really powerful. If it's just one technology, it's one thing. But if you say, well, if you know, Wi-Fi transmissions are getting this much faster, and they just put up some satellites that are going to be able to do this or that, and large language models are coming this way, then where they intersect can be the place where you should definitely take a serious look. And if your technology can benefit from that, or your industry, then by all means, start looking there and start trying to integrate those technologies and those people that know how to do it. So education, undoubtedly, the universities, training the new generation of people that can actually be better than we are at this. You know, then we can all retire and go to the beach, right? Anyway, the idea is, I really wanted to thank you for listening to all this, and I'm very proud to be here with Andres and Stargate Columbia, and I really appreciate the fact that we're all in the same boat trying to create the next generation of industry and artists and innovation. Thank you very much.